Hi, y'all. Akeisha Anderson here, Policy and Advocacy Director for Alabama Rise. And I am here to report that we are officially done with the 2023 legislative session. So, if you have not already, please give yourself a round of applause for all the help and assistance that you gave us this legislative session by responding to action alerts, reaching out to legislators, etc. Your work paid off. And so you already know, but I am going to tell you one of the biggest wins that we saw this legislative session, in large part thanks to you, thanks to everyone who showed up to our advocacy day, etc., was the passage of a grocery tax relief piece of legislation. So HB 479 is a piece of legislation that takes the first step towards giving everyday Alabamians relief from the state level grocery tax. We at Arise, along with you, our members, and other partners, have been fighting for legislation like this for decades, and we are super excited that we finally saw some traction on this. Although there's still some more work to do, and we will be coming back in future years to get some more relief to make sure that the Education Trust Fund is protected a little bit more, etc. We are super excited that everyday Alabamians will start experiencing some relief from the state level grocery tax as early as September of this year. Similarly, we did work in partnership with organizations like Alabama Appleseed this year to get other great legislation like SB 154 passed. This legislation ends the practice of automatically suspending driver's licenses for unpaid traffic tickets. And so that is something that is going to be a huge relief for so many Alabamians. Other pieces of legislation that we were excited about this session that may not have passed but did have, some really good traction that are worth mentioning include HB 14, which was a piece of death penalty reform legislation. And so even though this piece of legislation did not pass this year, mainly because it ran out of time, this year, for the first time since 2017, a committee in the legislature heard a piece of death penalty reform legislation. And so that is huge. It has been years since, something like this has happened. And so we are excited about that. Also, SB 196, which is a piece of legislation that would have enhanced our Open Records Act, added some more teeth, and increased state and local entity transparency. That piece of legislation made it pretty far in the process this year. It had one more chamber vote before it would have passed into law, but it also ran out of time. But we are excited about hopefully seeing that bill come back up in future legislative sessions. Unfortunately, along with the good, there was some bad that happened this legislative session. So one piece of legislation that we fought against was HB 24, which is a piece of legislation that criminalizes people experiencing homelessness. It makes it a crime for people to stand on the side of the road asking for money. And so although Arise did our best to fight against this bill, it did unfortunately make it out of the State House. And so that is a piece of legislation that unfortunately did make it all the way through the process. But there were other bad pieces of legislation that we fought against and that we were successful in helping to kill. So HB 209, which is a piece of legislation that would have criminalized people for assisting others with turning in their absentee ballots. This is a piece of legislation that we fought with partners every step along the way, and we were happy to see that in the last days of the legislative session, it died as well. And so that is exciting to hear and exciting to report. And lastly, SB 242, which is a piece of legislation that would have made it harder for tenants to rent properties because it would have removed a cap that landlords currently are restricted by, a cap where landlords can only charge one month's rent as a security deposit. It would have completely removed that cap and allowed landlords to charge whatever they want as a security deposit. That's a piece of legislation that we were concerned about, that we fought against, and we also were able to say we saw die this legislative session. So there were some good things, some bad things, a mixed bag of things that happened this legislative session. But throughout the process, again, you all were such a great help. You all were great assistants, and we really appreciate all that you have done to help us get to where we are today. And so we look forward to working with you again next legislative session. If you were not already signed up for our action alerts, definitely make sure that you visit alarise.org so that next legislative session you can get all our action alerts and be alerted to situations and pieces of legislation that we need your help with contacting legislators on. So thank you so much and take care.